So instead of asking you if you saw any movies this week, which I figure
Right.
we already know
Which
the
I
answer
didn't.
to. Yes.
Wow.
Other than the movie we're talking about today, of course.
Right.
I wanted to see if you had listened to the new Ariana Grande single.
I had not until about 5 minutes ago.
Do you know anything about her personal life? Like, are you up to snuff on her? Not to turn this
No.
into a celebrity gossip podcast. You're not? Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm not. No. Whoa, Jesus. All right, dish.
Well, do you know about her like general reputation from like a few albums ago? I know that you're a fan. You're an
No,
Ari.
wait.
You're a
Taylor
ponytail.
Swift was the one who did Reputation.
Shut. God, I know you're a Swiftie, but you are also an
I'm
Ari
a bit
fan.
of an Ari girly as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so you know that she has a general kind of I don't want to say promiscuous. That sounds like negative. But she has a bit of she hops around.
She's
in
a free spirit.
relationships. Yeah, she has a tumultuous romantic life, I'll say, with
Right.
Pete Davidson of it all, and Mac Miller and Big Sean, all of them. Well, so she was married after Thank You Next came out. She got married, and then she released Positions, right? Her most recent album, the one that released during COVID that no one listened to, but is really good.
Right.
Well, last year she got divorced. She's been filming Wicked, the movie adaptation of the Broadway musical Wicked. And so
Okay.
she's been like kind of out of the public eye a little bit for the last couple of years, kind of leaning really heavily into some strange, I'll just come out swinging like I did on Grand Budapest, some like anorexia core aesthetics, and not commenting on her body specifically, but some of the like posts she makes on Instagram and things are very like
Right. Very Edie core.
Edie vibes,
Edie
yeah.
filled.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, she's been out of the public eye. Well, she started dating. She got divorced. She announced her divorce
Right.
and like very quickly thereafter got divorced from like she was married to like a real estate developer or something, like some like random city.
Okay. Right.
And then immediately started to date her co-star in Wicked, who was married with a newborn child. And he's like I mean, Google him if you are so inclined. Google like Ariana SpongeBob and it'll come up. His name's Ethan Slater. You could also Google his name, I guess, but he plays SpongeBob
Wait,
on
what? Oh, sorry. Go on. Yeah.
on Broadway. Apparently, there's a SpongeBob Broadway musical.
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, so you've seen these memes or seen this
I've
face?
I've seen him on Broadway as SpongeBob. Yeah.
You saw him? Wait, you went to the Broadway
No.
SpongeBob musical?
I haven't
Okay.
seen him live. I have not seen him live on Broadway.
I was about
as
to
SpongeBob,
shit
but
brick.
I have seen clips from his Broadway show as SpongeBob.
Okay.
And it's surprisingly good. It's not bad. Yeah. And I remember that in the comments people were like, "Oh man, I can't believe Ari's into this."
Yeah.
And then like other people were like, "No, I kind of get it. Like watching his performance, I get it. Like she's a because they said like he has not band kid energy, but
Theater kid energy.
yeah, theater kid energy. Yeah, and they were like, she's kind of into the theater kids. I don't know.
Is she? I don't think she is.
I
I don't know. I mean,
I couldn't tell you.
I think she really likes to date guys that are like below her in status, I think. And so
Wow.
I don't mean that like, and I think that's why her and Pete Davidson had so much like chemistry and like, yeah, I think that she really enjoys being like the top dog.
Okay.
But anyway, so he was married and had just had a kid when he started hooking up with her, and it's been this whole big mess. He got divorced from his like wife, who's like again like not a famous person in the same way, and so
Right.
big like nasty cheating energy coming from this. And so she announced this single, and she's been like totally, they've been flaunting it basically, like they're
Right.
posting pictures of them and whatever, and meanwhile the ex-wife is like, this woman ruined my family, she's not a girl's girl.
Yeah.
Like kind of thing. And so she announced this single. To be clear, I really like Ariana Grande's music. Like I think her run of like Sweetener, Thank You Next, Positions is like an incredible 3 album run. I think there's really good songs on that album, and she's definitely been through a lot personally.
Right.
So she announces this single earlier this week, which I messaged you about privately, and I was like, my ED gremlins are going feral, knowing that this is coming. And so she releases this song, which is clearly supposed to be like a rebuttal to all of the press, the bad press that she's getting about her new relationship with the SpongeBob guy. And
Right.
it's so... okay, but what did you think? I know you just watched the or listened to it.
I kind of liked it as a song. I don't know.
You're crazy. You're fucking nuts.
I didn't think it was like... I didn't listen and immediately go, oh, this is horrible. But, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like standard fare for her, but it's not like a bad song of hers, I think.
You don't think?
No.
Oh, man. I think it's so... First off, she's cribbing from, like, Beyonce doing house music last year,
right,
or 2 years ago, really hard. Like, she is... Like, I saw someone online say, if Beyonce is doing house, this is giving tent. Like, she...
Wow.
It's just... It sounds like something you would hear in, you know, Sephora or a department store.
Yeah. No, it sounded
Derogatory.
like a poppy radio single, right? That I like. It's something I would expect out of I don't know, like a Sephora, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that in a horrible way. I mean that in a mean, like it sounds fair. It's giving 2017. I think it sounds dated. I don't know. It's rough. And
It does sound dated. I'll give it that. It does sound
Yeah.
like it's something out of like I'd say like maybe 2017, 2020ish.
Yeah. It that kind of like house, like kind of sampling, repetitive, quiet vocals. Yeah,
Right.
and specifically the soft little baby voice that she uses to do the little breakdown, like at the end, is so.
That's a pretty. That's not a bad impression there.
Thank you. I'm.
Thank you. I'm shitting on this.
I was gonna say birds of a feather, but she's doing like the. Did you watch the video or just listen to the music?
I just listened to the music.
She's doing like little. I'm so like precious and manifesting. I'm a victim. Like, leave me alone. What? Why are you so concerned about my personal life? Like, kind of thing. And it's.
Uh-huh.
She has a history of this, of like, you know, leaning into like innocent, childlike, etc. When she's like,
Yeah.
you know, been accused of doing shitty things like basically
being
blackface.
a bad person and then just like, come on, I'm just a little baby. You gotta hit a little baby. Gotta hit a birthday boy on his birthday with his birthday glasses on. Like, come on.
So yeah, it just that, and then just all of the lyrics that are very clearly being like, she's trying to say that everyone is projecting and that really she's so unbothered, but it's the ultimate like, you know, what's the drill tweet?
It's big copium, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What is it? I'm not angry.
Yeah.
I say as I get smaller and smaller and turn into a cob or something like that.
Yeah, corn cob. Yeah, it's that. So I don't know. I'm excited for this new era in that I do like her music generally, and I'm hopeful that she'll, you know, make something. If she's gonna be messy, I hope it's good mess. But so far, it's not. It's not panning out. So I feel like our pop is kind of in shambles right now. I'm not. You know, now that Beyonce has like finished her tour, released the movie, I'm like, okay, what the fuck else is going on? Yeah. I look at the top like trends and songs, and I'm like, we're just gonna listen to reggaeton for the rest of our lives, I guess, because nothing else is good.
You know, I feel like there comes a point in like everyone's life when they're like, oh man, like pop has like died, it's over, right? I mean,
yeah,
for a
it
lot
might
of
just
people,
be getting older.
that was when Michael Jackson, yeah.
I mean, well, like for example, rap has died off. Like rap is not, and I mean, of course, there's still rap happening, but like as a musical genre, it has totally fallen off, like in popularity, and like a lot of rappers aren't making music the same way that they did anymore. You still have Drake, but like, sure. Can you name a Drake song from the last 5 years? I know, like Lucy could, but that's because she's
no, but even.
a dyed-in-the-wool
Even
fan.
Drake, like he's always had like those like singy bits in his songs, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Actually, I saw a tweet the other day where someone was like, they were talking about how Drake sometimes makes like anime references on his
yeah,
lives,
yeah.
and they were like, man, I really relate to Drake because deep down he's just a fucking loser, and like so many people were like ragging on him in the comments, and
It's
like,
true though. Drake is a
yeah,
loser.
like every comment he
creep.
replied to, he was like, no, I say that in like a good way because I'm also a loser. Like I relate to him more.
That's funny. But yeah, like our titans of rap have kind of fallen to the wayside, and even our, women in rap have had like a huge resurgence. We're not going to talk about fucking Nicki Minaj, but like Megan Thee Stallion and Doja Cat, like all of the rappers who are like the female rappers who are big today are kind of infused with other genres. That's not to say they're not really
Right.
rapping, but their rap is very different than like trap music.
Yeah,
That
or
was
even like what is it?
Migos,
It's different from like right, and it's different from like sort of more basic rap, I guess, like Lauryn Hill, that sort of style.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's not many like women performing bounce
No.
bounce rap.
Yeah, you got
and
what,
then
Iggy Azalea like said it, and she's not
Yeah.
even really making music anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few smaller rap artists I like who have like definitely sort of they're incorporating more R&B. It's definitely like way more R&B focused than it's ever been.
Yeah, yeah.
And even
COVID
guys that
changed
were like
things.
yeah, even guys that were like big into like bounce. Once clubs started like shutting down, you can't really make like the vibe was just so wrong for that
Yeah.
few years. And like even after things opened up, like it's not like shit didn't get popping like it was.
It's true. Well, but then to counter that, maybe the
Uh-huh.
biggest song of 2020 was WAP, which is like absolutely not a song you listen to in your house, but there it is. I mean, we were. So it just
That's true.
It's interesting how it changed.
But the thing is, you can't really like. That's not a great song to dance to, though, right?
Well, for you.
For me, I think it's really catchy and like I like it, but like I don't know.
That's true.
I have to feed the cats real quick, or Lionel's gonna keep biting.
Oh my
around.
God,
Give me a sec.
this is a mess. So this podcast is We Want to Listen to Ricky Feed His Cats. His 5 cats, which we established on the last episode. Gun to my head, don't know that I could name them all. We got Kita, which is like a small little runt, basically. Ricky's never going to hear this, so I can really go in on him. Oreo, who's like a big ooh-eyed cat. All these cats are black and white. Milo's kind of like a bitchy older cat. He's long-haired. He's really cute, but he's skittish. And then we got Archie and Lionel, who are both like all black, practically interchangeable, except I think Lionel is the one that's really big. And that's the one that Ricky like is really attached to. Why he has 5 cats, only he can really say.
I'm back.
Damn. Okay. I was going to talk about my cat now that I've summarized all of yours.
You can feel free to.
My cat's name is Bankruptcy, or Banksy. He's a cute little, the opposite of all of Ricky's cats. He's an idiot. He's like a dog more than a cat. He's Prince Bankruptcy on Instagram. Go follow him. How would you describe Banksy?
He's not like a cat.
Exactly.
Like he's very much so not a cat, honestly.
Well, this is We Want to Watch, not We Want to Listen. We Want to Watch. My name's Lane,
My name's Ricky.
and this is a podcast where we talk about movies, or lately it's been anime, that we want to watch, whether that's because it's important or something we've heard about, or we want the other person to see.
And let's be fair. They were animated movies, right? It's not like I was recommending an anime to you.
Goemon's
Because-
Blood Spray was 51 minutes. Like, it barely
well-
qualifies as a short film.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's different than like right, but it's very different than if I had said like, hey, like,
Let's
would
go
you want to
watch
check out
One
an
Piece.
anime? Yeah, wow. I would never suggest One Piece. That's just fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That would have me laughed out of the fucking. I don't even know.
Podcast
What would we call this? Yeah, our caucus, our podcasting caucus.
Our
I don't know.
caucus. This week was Elaine's Frame. And this week we watched The Trial, directed by Orson Welles from 1962. I don't want to say anything. I have a whole ass page of notes. So all I'll say is I'm really excited to talk about this movie with you. But I want to hear about kind of what was your thinking going into this, because I know you've seen just the one Orson Welles movie, and 2, what did you think?
I like the movie. I don't think I really got this one.
Common thing, I think, for this movie for people.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it was well shot, and you know what? It didn't feel like a really old movie. Like, yes, it was in black and white.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a really old movie. Like, it felt like organic, I guess. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I don't know. I think I said that about literally every movie we've reviewed. I've just straight up said, "Hey, yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Good movie.
Yeah, this was a good experience." I think I just like watching movies, and I just don't do it. Like, that's it.
Yeah. That's a shame. You should indulge more in watching movies.
Wow.
Maybe you'll find something you don't like for once. Is there a movie you don't like?
Right.
What's a movie you do not like?
I don't know. I think I've only ever seen the good ones, right?
That's not true.
Wow.
What did you think about Smile? We saw that in theaters.
Oh, that was a good one. I like that.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
Wait, you didn't like that one?
I mean, that movie was affecting and okay. It was fine. It affected me more than it was good, I think. But that's because I'm
Okay.
struggling with mental illness and not because the movie's good. Not to the movie's credit, I think.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it both as like a horror movie and just as a movie in general. I thought it was like kind of creative, pretty interesting, like predictable, right? But like in a good way.
I think the best part of that movie is the very end with the monster. I have that clip from that movie like on my YouTube playlist of like movie scenes I watch over and over again because that shit is crazy.
If we're giving spoilers for the movie Smile, which check it out by the way, guys.
Yeah, pause here and go watch that movie, I guess.
Well, I mean, you've already spoiled like when the monster
I said
comes out,
there's a monster at the end. Very big spoilers for a horror movie.
I'd say one of my favorite scenes is actually where the guy like stabs himself in front of her and like makes a smile. That was.
I don't even remember what you're talking about. Cool. Honestly, is what I'll say.
There was like one of her patients that was like.
Oh, the guy who
kept like
okay. Yeah.
And he just like went to town.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a good
alright. It was okay. Yeah. It was okay. But so I'm assuming you haven't read. I haven't read this either. The original Kafka like novel, The Trial.
No.
Have you read any of his stuff? Are you familiar with it at all?
Oh, I've also read the one where the guy becomes a. Oh my god, I'm gonna feel so dumb because. Yes, and the name is like.
Metamorphosis.
The Metamorphosis. Fuck. Wow. Yeah, that was a good one.
I haven't. Name a book you don't like too. While you're at this.
Name any piece of media that you've consumed in a critical manner which you've disliked.
Yeah, name a YouTube video that you don't like. You like the Ariana Grande song. I mean, there's nothing Ricky doesn't like. You're a true film populist or whatever.
The thing is like, even if something makes me feel uncomfortable, like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, yeah, that's different than it being bad.
It's only if, like, I've watched something and I feel like, oh, like, this has literally just been a waste of my time. Do I feel like it's bad? Like, it's a bad thing, right? And I don't think this movie did that. Although, all right, I'll give my, like, sort of little opinions, like, what I sort of got from it, I guess. So it's not, like, hindered by what you have to espouse. So it's, I mean, it's kind of like a human condition thing, right? Where it's like, okay, well, like you are thrust into a, like as a person, you are thrust into a world of, I'll call it norms, right? Like social norms, which you have to sort of abide by, right? The social contract. And you may break some of these rules and you don't quite understand why it's happening, understand how it happens, but in doing so, like you've already signed on to it, right? And then there's always the possibility that you are outcasted and reviled for whatever you've done, right? And I mean, part of that causes people. Part of that is also like there's an unease, a guilt that can develop within people who are otherwise very normal, just because they don't know if what they're doing is right, and you can sort of get yourself tied up about that. And then rejecting that is also like seen as a crazy thing. But it's like, oh, like you need to do things the right way. Like you need to have a lawyer to represent you in your case, even if you don't know what the case is about. It's like, oh, you're going to reject your lawyer? How? You can't do that. Like there's just so many times where like in the film he's like, all right, well, like if they try to charge me with something, I'm just going to laugh at them. And they're like, oh, you would laugh at the High Inquisitor? And he's like, well, yeah, what's the High Inquisitor? They're like, he's the lowest judge of the land, you idiot, you dummy. And I don't know, it was inscrutable, right? Like, at least to me.
Sure.
And I mean, I get the whole, like, the story, even the story in the beginning that, like, they talk about later. Everybody's heard of this. The what
law,
is it?
The parable about the law?
Yes. Yeah. This door only opens for you. Because it only could open for you.
Yeah.
It's like, well, but like why, right? And it never explains that. I don't think it has to, right? That's sort of the mystique behind it.
Well, I think it's not supposed to be seen as true, right? It's supposed to be like a mind fuck. Like, don't you understand? Like, you know, you are trapped in our society, in our bureaucracy. And so
Right. We really do live in a society, huh?
I mean, that's kind of what this movie's about, I think. I mean, there's obviously more to it, though. I think it's less like we live in a society, more like you are the society. But Doctor,
Right.
I am the society.
Oh, my God.
I hear what you're saying. I do think this movie, like, I watched this movie, this was the first time I'd seen it, and I watched it, and I kind of knew the outline of the plot. And I did find it very, not alienating, but very kind of inaccessible. On a first watch especially, it's very, especially with the dialogue being delivered so quickly in some scenes and like not making sense. Obviously, like in the very beginning, it's all meant to disorient you.
Right. So real quick, is this a French movie? Like, is it in French natively?
No, but there is a ton of
Okay.
dubbing, which is why the lips
Right.
don't match up. Yeah, I'm sure that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like watching this. I was like, oh, Ricky's gonna be like, what the fuck? Why is this named Le Procès instead of the trial?
Right. So I thought it was a French movie which had been dubbed, and I was like, wow. So like but like it was dubbed when it was first released, and I was like, oh, they're using the release dub. This is like interesting.
So it's So Welles often made movies that were international because of his kind of career trajectory. I don't know if we've talked about this, like you and I, but basically, like he makes Kane. People are like, okay, that was pretty good, cool. And then a few years later, he basically, he's making other movies and they're getting torn to shreds, like by studios who think, okay, this guy can't, handle all of the money and power. He's only like 25 or whatever when he makes Kane. And so it's like, okay, this kid's too big for his britches. And then, the 50s happened with McCarthyism, of course, and like he is definitely up at the top of that hit list, even though he was just a socialist. He wasn't ever a commie. And so he flees, and basically for the rest of his life, he can visit the United States, but he basically only makes movies abroad. And so a lot of his movies have collaboration from like French and German and like all, people from all over, basically, actors and, other collaborators, filmmakers. He famously, like one of his movies that only just got released like 2 years ago or whatever, The Other Side of the Wind. That movie, like he had to borrow money from Iran like days before the fucking revolution happened in the 70s. So like he was like partnered with like political operatives there just because he couldn't, he was basically a I don't want to say like a street urchin. What's the right word for it? He tried to kind of get money from wherever. Yeah, I mean, he was. Yeah, there's like a lot of mythology behind this guy, which is what makes him so interesting. But yeah, so basically he had a lot of international productions like that. And so that's why there's frequent dubbing in this movie. That's why the title is in French, is because it was filmed in France. But yeah, it is. The dubbing is funny and also kind of gives... It really puts his fingerprint on this movie, or fingerprints all over this movie, not only because he appears, Wells, in the role of the advocate, but also, like, you hear his voice at the beginning, obviously at the end with the credits, and then all throughout the movie there's different characters who are dubbed by him, and you're like, it really gives him this, like, patriarchal, almost, like, presence in this movie of, he kind of comes to represent the law in, like, fucked up bureaucracy, in this really, omnipresent way that I think is interesting in this movie. But yeah, the dubbing does it like watching people, like any old movie, there's a lot of dubbing in a lot of old movies, and so anytime you see that and it's like, oh, the lips aren't matching up with what they're saying, it does take you out just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too bad, but like because I mean, it's you kind of get used to it watching like a foreign film, but I immediately was like, oh, like this is a foreign film which has been dubbed. But I think they did well in keeping the dub lengths, right? The thing that gets to me is when like a particular actor, like their line goes like very far over, like the dubbed line goes far over or like far before the
I hear
line.
you.
Yeah, right off the bat, the movie definitely throws you off guard with the
parable.
The parable, and then, I mean, the parable itself is like a good introduction, right? It sort of sets the tone. But the first scene that we see of, I don't even remember the guy's name, but our main character.
Yeah. Yes. Played by Anthony Perkins. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Anthony Perkins, isn't he like old now? I mean, he is old
dead.
Now. Is he? Okay,
yeah.
never mind.
He I don't know who you're thinking of. You think of Anthony Hopkins, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even have to look up. Yeah.
Anthony Perkins, I think he died in the 90s. He was most famous for being Norman Bates in Psycho, if that's a movie you've ever seen. Or like the sequels. You know the movie Psycho. I'm sure you haven't seen it, but you know that movie. You've heard of that.
Psycho?
You're fucking kidding me.
American Psycho? Or just Psycho?
Just Psycho. You haven't heard of the movie Psycho? The shower scene?
Okay.
I was about to get up.
Yeah. I've heard of it. I haven't watched this now.
Okay.
But yes, I've heard of the shower scene. Yeah.
Yeah. He plays the kind of neurotic main guy in Psycho. I won't say anything else, but
he kind of looks like Nathan Fielder.
He does kind of look like Nathan Fielder.
Yeah.
It's true.
I honestly think Nathan Fielder probably got his character a little bit from this guy, right?
That's true. Yeah, the kind of like
the like I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. But also, I mean, he's like, I mean, his looks wise for sure, but also the way that he plays, like, I don't really know what's going on here. I'm just doing my thing. Why is everyone else being so weird? That Fielder brings to pretty much
everything,
all media, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but yeah, from like the very first scene, or not the very, I'll say from the very second scene, the very first scene that we see our protagonist.
Yeah, in his apartment when the police first get there.
Yeah, and the police are like not even questioning him, just like telling him things, and trying to twist his words against him, and then he sees like the guys from his work who are just like looking through his shit and his neighbor's shit, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, you can't do that. You can't be here. Why are any of you here? What's happening?
Yeah, it's infuriating.
But it's, I mean, it is very much so like society. I hate saying this. Society has built up a large number of rules, right? And like they're load bearing. They help society function, right? Like people have built up these rules amongst like what's acceptable, what's not, and then like sort of breaking those down, right, is always like it's like a hurdle to overcome, right?
So do you think this movie is about social norms? Because I read this movie very much about like the law as we understand it, like legal bureaucracy, and obviously like there's not like a super clear line between those two things necessarily, but I do think of this movie as very much about like political, like society or you know, political roles in society versus you know, social norms. Like he definitely behaves like he has something to hide.
Yes. For sure.
And whether or not he's actually guilty, right? I think part of that too is I think there's subtext in this because the actor was a closeted gay guy, and so I think there's some subtext there of like he's so pretty and so nervy, but he's also like kind of obsequious and an asshole, like, and like the kind of like he's like a middle manager, basically. Like several times he's like,
and he likes to
I'm
say
the assistant department manager or whatever. Yeah. And so you don't immediately like empathize with him, but that doesn't mean that he should be, of course, subject to all the things he is. But he's just as much part of society and like the political machinations. He is an accomplice to it. I do think this movie is as much about like people are in society, but they also are society. They're kind of one and the same. And so I think that's why he's condemned. Which I don't think that's necessarily like. I think this movie's about Wells's views more than it is about the original story.
Right. So it's like the idea of the Leviathan, right? And where like you give up certain liberties to be protected, right? But he mentioned several times, like I think he says it outright, like he says like, how can someone be innocent without feeling innocent? Or like, how can someone be guilty without feeling guilty?
Yeah, he says stuff like that all the time. He's like, I feel guilty even though I haven't done anything.
Right,
yeah.
right. Like
but
when
he
you're
has
in class
done something.
And like,
yeah.
Well, we don't know. Has he done something?
Well, he's done something by being a part of the paper-pushing bureaucratic society and being a conformist, I think. Like, this movie made me feel guilty. Like, you and I, we both work, whatever, not desk jobs, but computer jobs, email jobs, as people like to say. And so just watching this and it being like, oh, yeah, like... And that's not to say we're the same kind of, like, sniveling, ambitious, whatever people as, like, the main character in this movie. But... yeah, it is kind of like turning a mirror on the whatever, like the middle manager class of like, you guys are the ones setting up these boundaries and, trying to advance and whatnot. But, at the end of the day, the law could be turned back on you and you can't talk your way out of it or schmooze your way out of it.
Right. I mean, I think that it even comes down to like how the law operates, but the law operates within bureaucracies, right? And bureaucracies are formed to protect those within it, right? Like you want due process, you need due process in order to be fair, to be equitable. But you can sort of get tied up within it.
By design.
By design, right? Where you can get lost within it. But it also helps, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up the middle manager thing because it helps you to sort of relieve yourself of sin, right? Like you abstract yourself from it, I guess I should say.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think that's a large part of society as a whole, right? We've abstracted away all of the sort of negative aspects of like what our like living does, right? Like what impact our consumption has not only on the environment, but on the people around us.
And the people that you're exploiting or consuming. Yeah.
Right. Not necessarily like around us locally, but around us like
the world.
Supply chain wise. Yeah.
Which it's so funny, like this is maybe not related, but I think it is. There is such a like on the left today, there is such a tendency to use there's no ethical consumption under capitalism like line to absolve yourself of your overconsumption. And I know we've talked about this before, but why shouldn't I have enough money to live as frivolously as the upper class? And why shouldn't I be able to, people use this example and, on its face, I understand what people are getting at, but they're like, well, the common advice is like, don't buy a latte every day and you'll have, your soy lattes are like what's keeping the millennials or like Gen Z broke, right? Or avocado toast.
Avocado toast, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, and people are like, oh, it's actually not that much money. And like, why shouldn't I be able to enjoy this one small thing every day while billionaires have yachts or whatever? But it's like, why are you entitled to the goods of like other countries? And why are you entitled to having them extremely cheap at the expense of, the labor of the global South, like that kind of thing? And I'm not saying that like, that doesn't make it right for, idiot financial advisors to be like, well, millennials just can't stop spending on lattes. But there's never that extension of like, well, maybe we all should eat more locally and not in a GMO hippie way, but in a, this is better for, the global South and other like exploited people around the world or even our own migrant farmers in America and things like that. So
I think technology is the biggest like aggravator there. At least in my mind, right? Or the biggest assaulter.
What do you mean?
I think that consumer technology has not only had mass negative impact upon society as a whole, but mass negative impact upon Earth's natural resources and
True.
like the people of the world, right? And we push for efficiency in a few areas, but we allow just huge, massive amounts of waste in sort of single-use technologies, right? So like a lot of silicon can't really be recycled or reused. Some of it can. It's a difficult process. It's not great, but we burn through that, right? And a lot of that was on like planned obsolescence of devices. Apple is
Right.
notorious for this,
Yeah.
and they're also notorious for having horrible like supply chain.
Human rights violations.
Yeah, right. Like they have a lot of blood on their hands, and people who buy into that have a lot of blood on their hands. Not saying that Android is any better, right? Not saying that
Right.
Google is any better.
Yeah.
Like all of these choices are bad, and it's in fact it's a function of the system that this happens, and that system in itself is bad for that to be a function of the system. And like again, like you're bought into it. You're trapped already, right? Like
Right.
from the moment that you grow up with it, like either you have a phone or you're an outcast, right?
Right. Like, who doesn't have a phone anymore? Like, there are very, very
Right.
few people. Yeah.
Right,
In America,
right,
at
right.
least. Yeah.
And so like great. So now I'm essentially forced to, in order to have the same quality of life, and not even the same quality of life, in order to be like
A part of
viewed as
society.
a person, right? Like as
Yeah,
a human
yeah.
being, to be a part of like functional society, I need to have blood on my hands. I need to contribute to that.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
okay, great. So I'm already culpable based off that.
Yeah. It's one of those fundamental contradictions that Marx talks about, honestly, is like that
Yeah.
you have to, participate in, like the comic that people always reference, but the
Curious.
analysis stops there.
My-
often. Like people
yeah.
don't want to, yeah.
So it's
and I
it's
think
the
that's,
same thing as like, oh, 99% of pollution comes from like the top 5 corporations.
Right. What are those corporations doing?
Right. They're
Right,
providing
like-
services for you, the consumer.
goods, yeah,
Right. Like
yeah,
goods
right.
or services. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Money
not like
can
they're
be
just
exchanged for goods and services. It's like, great.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this movie, I think, obviously like Wells and Kafka, they didn't know, right, to the extent that we'd be arguing about avocado toast 40, 50, 60, 100
The
years
thing
from
is, I think that like the patterns were already in place, right? Like it's a very
For sure. For totally. Absolutely.
right.
Especially
It's
in
a
the 50s.
societal thing to do. Maybe not a human thing to do. Like it's not something that a oh fuck. It's not like Homo sapiens are not like predispositioned to do that. If
What
we
did
were
you just call me?
right,
Sorry.
my bad. Heterosapiens. No, but yeah, like Homo sapiens would like if they were in another environment, right, and they had adapted to another environment, it's not like it's a feature of the system, right? One that
Right.
they created, that we created. You're a
Yeah.
rat in a cage at that point, and like
Despite all your rage.
yeah. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage.
It's good that you did that because I was like, am I going to have to pull the French champagne commercial and use that as our outro for...
The only one. Jesus was an only
All right, so we're like
Jesus
10
actually
minutes
wasn't
into the
an
movie.
only son too. That's crazy. Yeah, sorry. All right, we can keep going with the. Sorry, I have to let Archie in, but we can keep going with the rundown of the movie. So
So,
the interactions
Yes.
with his neighbors and his landlady, who is obviously into him.
yes. Even before that, I mean, it's funny. So I did watch as well, like a interview or a Q&A session that Wells did like 30 years later about this movie with a group of like USC students or something, like film study students. And in it, he denies that this is like an erotic movie. He kind of said, or he denies that he's an erotic filmmaker. He denies that there's like a ton of sexuality in his movies, in it. And that's fucking insane, because this movie, I mean, obviously there's things in this movie that are like overtly sexual, like the, he calls the, what is it, the phonograph, he calls it a pornograph in the opening scene. The argument about the word ovular, like, obviously that's something.
Ovaries, right?
Yeah. Eggs, ovum, whatever. I mean, take your pick. But then also, all of the women in this movie, like, Wells is on the record being like, literally, like, I hate women. Like, he said that, like, those words verbatim. And so
you can kind of tell with this one. Wow.
Yeah.
Bit, though, yeah.
He can't help himself. Like, God bless him. Like, he cannot help but be like, okay, women are either all like shrewish, like motherly types who like are overbearing and like can't help but like smother you, or they are seductresses or like screaming, dripping, with like sexuality, like women with ulterior motives, or even like little girls screaming after Joseph in that crazy hallway sequence when he visits the artist. The treatment of women, like, and specifically the way that they're basically shrouded in sexuality in this movie is really fascinating. I think that adds a level of like, I don't want to say symbolism, but a level of understanding of like, are women, the keepers of society? Like, what is the interpretation of like, what is women's role in society? Are they basically there to signify transgression, or like to be keepers, gatekeepers of boundaries? It's just every time he encounters a woman, he's either, like kind of goofy the way that he approaches, for example, his neighbor who he peeps on. He's like nervous and unprepared and shy, but then he is trying to make these like very clownish advances on her when she's drunk. But then every time he meets a woman after that, he's like kind of repulsed. And these women are framed in this like repulsive way, like the woman dragging the suitcase, which is an incredible shot. Like that sequence is all one take, kind of long. Yeah.
Really cool.
But just, it's so stark and scary and funny.
She's very confrontational about it too.
Yeah, it's so funny. Have you ever read or seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead?
Nah.
Okay. It's an absurdist play. I won't get into it, but basically it's two side characters from Hamlet going through the plot of Hamlet, but they, all the dialogue is basically like them kind of having these like non sequitur, absurd conversations that like, it sounds sometimes like they're talking to different people than each other. Mm-hmm. And that's the impression I got, not only from the opening scene where he's talking to the detectives, but also anytime he's talking to women specifically, but kind of anyone in this film. He can't get direct answers to his questions. He's being denied, or he's often too afraid or too defensive to actually get anything accomplished or get straight answers to anything in this movie.
Even when he's on the offensive, like everything is just so like obfuscated, right? And nothing seems to make sense at all.
For sure, by design again.
Yeah. I do also want to comment on the portrayal of women. Even his young cousin.
That part was so like, it's
not sexualized by him directly, thankfully.
No.
But like his boss was like, wow, you gotta watch out. You gotta get her out of here.
Yeah, and he like accuses him of being like a pedophile, basically. He's like, what? Yeah. She's like 16? You're disgusting. It's really fucked up and funny. It
was so weird, because he was like, oh, she's 16? Cute as a button. You're fucking disgusting. It's like, wait, pause, buddy. But yeah, I mean, maybe that says something about how, like, Wells sort of interacted with women in life. I don't know.
For sure.
Like how he saw them, and like how women interacted with Wells during his life. The full version of that quote is, "I hate women, but I need them." So like, and he collaborated with a lot of the same women, over and over again. He was married, several times, but
His like longtime partner at the end of his life was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like creatively, if you remember from F for Fake.
No, I
So yeah,
watched
it
it when I
just
was like 8.
okay. Well, that's so crazy. You
I know.
couldn't come up with a crazier movie to see when you were 8. But yeah, so I do think that he had at best a complicated relationship with women, and it's just like all over his filmography. It's very present. You know, Kane. There's women in that, and women are treated a little bit more tenderly, but in this, it's like, yeah, just women are just, I mean,
I
obstacles basically, or boundaries, you know, to be transgressed.
I don't know. Even in Kane, like there are more set pieces in most cases.
Yeah, they're not as principal.
Yeah, I mean, like,
There's not as many women either in that movie.
yeah. Um, I guess his wife in Kane, he does show at least some form of preference towards. Uh, Although he
Yeah.
like it's in a weird controlling manner. But yeah,
Well,
we're not
yeah,
talking about
because
Kane here.
no, it's. I mean, you can't help but draw comparisons. I think because this movie is so bleak and pessimistic, whereas Kane is like, it's nostalgic and it's sad, but it's more nostalgic. And this movie, I think, is
It's also a
also
little bleak, right? You can have it all and yeah, still
yeah.
want just the one piece that'll make you whole, right? And
Unless you're Donald Trump, in which case you think that movie's great because it shows a guy getting rich and having it all, and everything's fine.
right.
But yeah, I do think this movie is like, it's bleak, but it's also it's kind of obsessed with the past in a way of like
Well,
it's
well,
more
real
it's more
quick,
scathing toward the past. Go ahead.
before we move on, let's continue the look at women in this
The
movie.
plot. Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean the plot, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's sort of
whatever. We don't
secondary
go
to
through the plot in this movie, in
Yeah.
this podcast.
I mean, sometimes we
Anyway.
do, but
So women.
I mean, yeah. So this might sound weird. I think the movie being shot in French is maybe it's not like a point like necessarily
You mean
to
shot
be
in
taken.
France? Or
Shot in France or like and like
okay.
and French
Having French actresses.
having French
Yeah, okay.
actresses, yeah, actors. The way that women are presented within society, they only have soft power, right? Within the bureaucracy here, right? We don't see any
That's true.
women within positions of hard power, and it's even the one woman who was like fraternizing with one of the judges or something,
The guard, yeah.
or the guard, yeah. She like made a little joke like, "Oh, what if I was yada yada judge," and like dismissed out of hand immediately, right? So it's kind of reminiscent of not just the spot in which, for like a large portion of time, women have held only positions of soft power within society, and I mean that's sort of changed towards more general equality lately. But especially around the French Revolution, there was like a huge calling out against that. I forget who wrote letters to the general populace, but like they were. I wish I could remember her name. But there was a woman who was essentially like, she was a woman of the night, right? She was like in the pleasure quarters, and she essentially said like, hey, like, look around you, look at what you can accomplish, look at the power that you hold now, and like see what could be, right? And it was sort of like a direct call from being like, oh hey, like, sure you have a lot of soft power, and sure you know can curry favor with these men in positions of power, but what if you had that yourself? Like, what if that could be yours?
Yeah.
Like why are you not aiming for that? Why is this the life that we're content with? And I mean that was a sort of direct call out to it, and I just think it's interesting that that's French, and this being a French film,
Well,
it's not
yeah.
like a direct call out of that, but it's definitely, I don't know if that's like a cultural thing there, but it definitely sort of highlights that sort of soft power, hard power sort of thing.
Yeah, I see that. I think also, too, contextually, this movie came out 1962, and the 60s was really when, like, French New Wave cinema kind of started taking off. And so, like, in the context of like movies in general, that is kind of a time a different depiction of women was, you know, eminent, or was, yeah, just that's what I think when I think of French New Wave. I do think of like different roles for women being offered than traditionally in cinema. There's a lot of like, there's a lot of like interesting, not necessarily quote empowered in the way that you're talking about, but just more interesting female characters in French New Wave, I think, than other films of the time or like of the preceding couple decades of cinema, especially in America. And so,
which is a form of empowerment, right? Like,
sure, I'm just saying not politically in the same way of being part of bureaucracy, etc. But I don't think that Wells is necessarily interested in that. I don't think that he cares.
No.
I don't think he cares. I mean, it's funny. He was like a very outspoken, like socialist and progressive with racial issues, but to my knowledge, I don't think he ever cared about feminism. He probably was like, this is probably me not like, what's the phrase? Don't meet your idols. But I probably like if I Googled like Orson Welles feminism, I'd be extremely disappointed. But
I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just a sort of like
a product of having French collaborators.
Right. And that sort of like mindset, that stylization, I guess. Or even just like a product of how Orson viewed like women's role within society, right?
Yeah, that's true. I do think that I mean, there's a lot of lines, literal, physical, like talking about the cinematography here a little bit, literal lines separating women from Joseph in this movie, like you know, kind of actually physically showing that there is like either sexual repression happening or, you know, something else going on where he just can't seal the deal, or these women are like, you know, again, like these transgressive kind of symbols to him, and they're, you know, part of society, but they're, like you're saying, they're not occupying the same role as like the men that he has to deal with, who are often like more patriarchal figures.
And speaking of the cinematography, where the fuck did they shoot this? Like,
okay, actually, I wrote this down because I wondered the same thing. I was like, well, these are sets, but what the fuck?
Yeah,
like, it's a French abandoned railway station.
Okay,
so like
makes
he
sense.
apparently,
I was gonna say it's a kind of industrial, but there's also like areas that were
Baroque. Yeah, like it's very like ostentatious kind of
and just weird. Like it was anachronous with itself, which was like I don't know. It was cool.
Awesome.
It was just so odd, like to look at.
Yeah.
And like some of these places were big. Like I was like, there's no way they made this just for this movie. So like, what the fuck was going on?
They started it in Yugoslavia, but then they transitioned over to Paris to try to find a place to film there. And so he found this like railway station in Paris that was, you know, basically they like redressed the whole idea of the movie, which was apparently way more expressionistic. So like, you know, the scene with the painter that he goes into, like that like room, that like little tower, the wooden tower that the painter's in, makes no fucking sense. Like there's like hallways upon hallways. It's like designed like a fucking Cinnabon, like, you know, like there's like swirling it on itself, and then there's you know, it somehow connects to the sewer, like sure
it's a little plate of funnel cake, right? End of the day.
And and the rest of the movie is kind of has that like dream logic or like illogical set, you know, like pathways where he's opening a door and suddenly you're in the court, or like you're opening a door and suddenly you're outside or whatever.
Right.
And so apparently things were more, the original design sketches that they had were more kind of to that, you know, in that way of like very expressionistic, like crazy high ceilings that they could utilize, like really, or like really long hallways that they could do a lot of like really crazy stuff with shadow. But instead they had this railway station, and so they did a lot of like deep focus, you know, again, these like long hallways, and you know, the kind of like big spaces that are shown to like overwhelm Joseph. like these like you're talking about, like these really high ceilings, like really crazy, like intricate designed, like Baroque architecture. And then there's also these really cramped small spaces with these low ceilings, like in the very beginning in his apartment, to show that he's trapped, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, when they're in like in that scene with the lady with the trunk, they look like they're in the Eraserhead city. Like they look like they're walking through. So it's really an impressive looking movie, and I think it conveys that tone and makes you uncomfortable in a way that, you know, adds to the like alienation.
For sure. And the way that the same way that the dialogue is sort of stilting, where like people are just sort of talking at each other, and sometimes not even at each other.
Yeah.
They're just talking, and they're in the same room, and like things are happening because of that, like in the dialogue, which is like it's so odd, but that's sort of complemented by this like really like odd disjointed sort of cinematography where you don't really see transportation, right? Like that's not
Yeah, he'll just show up.
right, and like when he leaves, he's just gone.
The only time that you really spend any time showing him walking somewhere is at the very end when he's being
Right.
led to the big crater. There's like, I mean, it's a long sequence of him being led by those two policemen, you know, through like over the river and through the woods. Basically, he like they take him on a journey out there, and so I think it's the first time that he feels outside of like the bounds of, you know, the society that he's in, and really that's part of his arc too. Is like at the end of the movie, he finally accomplishes like some agency and does something actually truly, you know, antagonistic toward society is when he picks up the bomb.
No. I mean, that's his
Sorry,
crime,
I cut you off.
right? No, that's fine. I mean, that's his. I mean, it's kind of like that's his crime, right at the end of it all. Which is just, and he even yells at them. He's like, "What? You're gonna make me pull the trigger?" Or I think he says like,
Yeah. You're gonna have to
"Flip
do
the
it."
knife
Yeah,
or
is
whatever."
what he
Yeah.
says.
He's
Yeah.
like, "You have to do it."
Yeah.
Very middle management. Very again, sort
Yeah.
of abstracted from whatever consequences your decisions or actions may have.
Yeah. It's hard not to watch this literally, I think. Like, it, you know, I know that this is symbolic, but like, or not symbolic, but allegorical, but I think today, especially that opening scene of like, you know, the police state surveilling him and trying to twist his words on him, it's hard not to watch it and be like, oh yeah, this could like actually literally happen to, you know, somebody today. I know that we're not necessarily as dire as like that, but you watch interactions that police have with civilians, especially
Any
homeless
disadvantaged
people
peoples,
or
right?
people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah, you watch these videos and it's like, oh, they'll like use these tactics for real though. It's scary.
Yeah, and it's so being a part of many online circles. I mean, obviously the left brings that up a lot, but the ones that the right gets really outraged about are the acts against like white people where that sort of stuff happens,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like it's the exact same thing, right?
I thought you were going to bring up sovereign citizens. I was like, oh, Ricky, don't.
Oh no. But like,
Don't make me pull out the AJ voice. Sorry,
no,
go ahead.
but it'll be the same thing where like police officers are giving multiple commands, often conflicting, and then they just like fire.
Misinterpret your words, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right, and they're like, oh well, like he wasn't following my commands, and it's like, well, yeah, because you told him like 4 or 5 different things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or there were multiple officers there, all giving different commands, and like there's again, like you're stuck in a system, or like that person, whoever is being yelled at, right? Like they're stuck in a system. They don't know, like, not that they don't know what is right, but like you're already implicitly you feel guilty because your guilt is being thrust upon you, and now you have to find your way out of this. And it's like, well, what doesn't get me killed here, right? Like, how do I get out of this? How do I survive this? And it seems like a lot of times it seems like there's no way out, right? And then even at the end of all of that, right, the people who have abused their power and who commit these atrocities. I mean, maybe atrocities is going a bit far, but like they're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
obviously
injustices.
Yeah. And they get off scot-free, right? Like I've seen many cases where police officers get like years of paid leave. They get like their pension. They're allowed to live much better than normal members of society, and maybe not much better, but they're living above average for sure. It's
totally.
being paid
Cops
for,
are super overpaid. Yeah,
right, and it's being paid for by the society that they have wronged, right? Because they're breaching the social contract. Like they are given power within the society in order to execute certain social contracts, and they broke that, and yet they get off. Like they not only get off scot-free, they like ascend to like a higher plane almost, right?
Yeah,
like,
I don't think they're actually breaking the social contract. They're upholding it. They're doing exactly as they're supposed to, because the social contract isn't saying, actually protect and serve people. Like that's not. It's not.
Right.
It's like people
it's protect
with an
and serve
asterisk.
the interests of the powers
Yeah,
that be. Right.
yeah.
I get that. Right.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's
it's a feature of the system. It's not a bug.
Right.
But in an ideal society,
but it's still fucked up. Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The social trust is given that the powers that be or whatever that they are creating these laws and they are working for the betterment of the people, and that's the sort of oath that they're supposed to take. To protect and serve is the oath that they're supposed to take. But I mean, like, I hate to bring up The Simpsons here, but like they say in The Simpsons, right? Marge is getting arrested, and she says, "I thought you said you were powerless." And Wiggum goes, "Powerless to help you, not to persecute you," as he's like slapping cuffs on her.
Sure.
So it's like, I mean, yeah, and that's kind of how it shakes out at the end of the day, right? Like, again, and I mean, in this movie, they're like the authorities are definitely have power to persecute, but like the people that he turns to for help, all of the time they're like, well, I have friends in high places. Yeah, we can find a way.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he just goes, What are you talking about? I'm innocent, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Society. Am I right?
I mean, I do think this, that is the point of this movie, is like, you can be a victim and a member or a contributing, factor in society being shitty. And you are, there's no way of opting out. I think that's why the movie kind of starts with the parable, too, is because it's like, oh yeah, like, you're meant to kind of stew on it and have that frame of mind just the way that you would if you lived in this particular society, of like, oh yeah, law is like this inaccessible thing, and really you're fucked. There's no way that you can kind of get through, but you're told this whole time that you can.
Right.
Right. Even though that's not true, and that, could the man of the parable have just used violence, basically, or like, transgressed, and kind of broken the rules to get through? Like, that's not even presented as an option.
Right. But because at that point,
but you can.
Then you have broken the rules, and then they have something that they can use against you. And it's like, so you can take the moral high ground, or you can take the ethical, inter-societal high ground.
Yeah.
And that is still the losing move. And you don't even get the satisfaction of giving them a little black eye or a little nudge. Yeah.
Yeah. What else haven't we talked about in this movie? So the ending, right? I think the ending has changed. So apparently in the original book, which I guess Kafka never actually officially finished, like it was posthumously published. In the original, the guards kind of pass the knife back and forth through each other, and then they say, well, why don't you do it, Joseph? Why don't you kill yourself? Like, have this dignity of killing yourself instead of us killing you.
Yeah.
And he refuses, and so he gets stabbed, and he dies like a dog, is the verbiage. So
classic.
And, yeah, I mean, great ending. This ending, I get why it ends this way. Like, it is kind of showing a bit of a more of an arc of, for the main character. It's giving us a little bit of like a redemption almost to him. He's no longer a part of the conforming, desk driving, ambitious, whatever, like middle manager type.
Yeah.
And instead he's breaching that transgression, and he's finally doing an act of violence against the bureaucracy, the law. But I don't know that it fully works. I feel like it should, I don't know that the arc is earned. It's one of the things that keeps this from being, I think, like a perfect movie to me, is the ending change. I feel like I kind of want to see him die. Like, I want it, I want the pessimistic ending. I don't know.
I think part of it is also to keep it with the tones of the bureaucracy, the government, the authority. They don't get their hands dirty, because they never really like use force on him throughout the whole movie, right?
Yeah.
And they keep that up through the end, right? Where it's like, well, you got to do it yourself. And he says, like, you come do it. You come do it, right? But, like, they're all middle managers. It's middle managers all the way down. Where they're, again, like, the abstraction, they're not going to get their hands dirty. And he explodes!
He does, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's probably like one of the saddest parts of, like, I think of any Welles movie I've seen, too. It's a very pessimistic movie. That's what I'll say.
I think a lot of Welles movies are pessimistic. I thought Citizen Kane was really pessimistic as well. But that was just my view on it.
Pessimistic, but there is a glimmer of hope. I think there has to be when you're dealing with nostalgia in a way that movie is so obsessed with. You kind of have to come away with it being like, well, at least there were good times, and like maybe if man is attracted to, power and greed, but there's still a child in all of us, kind of a thing.
I get that. But also, I mean, there's the flip side of it where
he dies alone. He
dies alone. And he was so like focused on this idyllic past, which never really existed, right? Like he ties in the idea of this not snowboard, sled, right, represents all of my childhood happiness, right? And like this is my happiness. That's what I need back. Have you ever seen? All right, give me 1 minute.
No, take your time. I'm so excited. You asking me about a movie I've seen, which means that you have seen another movie too.
Have you seen Mark Osborne's More?
I don't think so. Let me look this up.
It's 6 minutes. It's real short.
Okay.
In fact,
I have not seen this.
You could even watch it right now. But yeah, Mark Osborne's More goes. I mean, it's really succinct, and it's like, hey, what if, like, in trying to pin down that, like, happiness from childhood, I mean, he gets sort of into, like, the capitalistic expression of it, and, like, by trying to, like, root it down, but by trying to find the root of it, you kill it, right? It's not something that can be commodified. It's not something that can be captured or contained. It's something organic, and it'll always find its way, right? Like, I think Mark Osborne's More, it has a much more optimistic view than Citizen Kane does. And you know what? It's 6 minutes, so if you want to watch it real quick, feel free. That would actually be pretty cool, I think.
Let me do that. Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back. What'd you think?
That was really good. First, I'll say, didn't expect to hear New Order while watching that. I was like, okay. That was good. I liked it. It was a good parable about why you can't just do LSD all the time.
True. I mean, also, I think it points at the sort of wider...
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just being facetious, but it did make me want to do drugs again. But no, it's very, very pessimistic. But I don't know.
There's some optimism.
Yeah, toward the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like the main theme of it being that, like, damn, we really do be in a society, huh? Which
I think it's yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I mean,
No, go ahead.
it forces you to become something that you don't want to be, and
Yeah.
it sells you on a dream that doesn't exist, right?
Well, a dream that can't exist. Not only, that can't exist in a society like that, but also that you can't recreate manufacture, basically.
Right,
You could
right,
recreate
right.
it. You could still have, moments of joy and bliss and whatever, but not produced in a factory, by a scheming, like, Charles Foster Kane type, basically.
Right. But like the way that society has built itself, the only way to really enjoy it is, or the only way to really find those, like, moments of connection, those moments of, like, clarity, of happiness, are outside of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be far, far away, and those are the only times it uses those really, like, those warm colors, like right at the beginning and then right at the end.
Yeah.
You see that, like, true warmth, and then everything else is that sort of, like, bright fabricated light, or
Yeah.
like cartoony light. So yeah, I don't know. That's probably, like, I mean, it's probably my favorite short film. That's a Rick pick for sure.
Yeah, you stuck a Rick's pick even in this Lane stream.
Well,
How dare you?
hey, I don't know what to tell you. I'm making all of these double features.
Yeah. It's a triple feature if you count the Ariana song, too.
Ooh, facts.
Anything else about this movie? I will say, like, the actual composition of a lot of these shots is so nightmarish. Ones that come to mind, the flogging scene, the scene with the two guards, that's, like, shot in handheld, and the, like, focus is changing, and there's, like, this violent editing, while they're being flogged and while Joseph is, like, struggling to get out of the door the first time. That's really nightmarish, really dreamlike, and not in, like, even a surreal way, but just, well, definitely not in a good way. But there's also, when he visits the advocate, there's several rooms that are just, like, rotting piles of books and chairs that are just so grotesque.
Very Lynchian.
And they're coupled with
Sure,
yeah. I mean, it is the design of those rooms in particular, are definitely an inspiration, I think, for Eraserhead, or at least Lynch in general, probably. But yeah, they're so grotesque, and then to couple those with a lot of the close-ups of Lenny, the Lenny nurse character for the advocate, who we haven't really talked about much, but she's, like, she's shot very lasciviously, I would say, where, it's not like there's, like, zooms on her butt or whatever, but, like, she is, like, shown in this, like, shot in this very, like, seductive kind of sensual way, especially when she's, like, leaning in to, like, talk to the advocate at one point, and they're, like, practically on top of each other.
Sensual's a very good way to put it. It's not like the Rosian-y fucking, like, skirt up shots for the first 20 minutes, but
right, but she, her eye makeup, she has this, like, extreme eyeliner that, like, trails off her face, and it gives her face this, like, really kind of wide look to it. And I mean, she's beautiful, but it's, they do a couple close-ups of her, or, like, she'll, like, extend her neck, and it makes her head look like just like an extension almost of her neck instead of a head. It's really, I don't know, they shoot her in a very grotesque way too, I think, which is obviously intentional.
Is she doing doe eyes, or is that fawn eyes, siren eyes?
She's siren maxing. In this movie.
Good.
Yeah.
Just wanted to see.
Yeah, she her eye makeup is, like, she's doing this. She has this, like, very harsh, like, liquid eyeliner on. She has, like, this very straight across the eye eyeliner look that looks good. It makes her eyes look really beautiful, but it's also very intense and like not fiery, but like like almost penetrating. Like she has like this very like sharp look because of that. And of course, you know, she's working with the advocate. She's using her right soft power to try and, you know, they talk about how the advocate says like, oh, you know, she tells me about all the affairs she has and she finds accused men attractive and all of that. So obviously
but
she's
only when he
playing a role
allows
there.
her. Like
Yes, yeah,
it's
of
like,
course.
oh,
of course.
okay, right.
Yeah. But yeah.
She still
It's cool.
does it, but she only tells him when he allows her. That's what it was. And it's like
Yeah,
it's like a weird fine distinction between the soft power, hard power, where it's like that's her soft power. She's
Yeah.
allowed to wield that. But
Yeah.
that she would have power against him, like leverage against him for that which he does not want to hear. But she can't abuse that because of his very real hard power.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even, you know, that's probably, she is not a conformist, but, you know, she's kind of a middle manager in that way, the same way that Joseph is. You know, she'll wield whatever small power she has to over somebody else to, you know, advance herself. And that, you know.
Yeah. For her own ends.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, who doesn't, right? You know? Like, everyone's...
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone, but, like, most people have their own sort of... And, like, even, like, our main guy, like, he's got his systems, and he... You know, like, I have my systems. He comes off very, in the beginning, very autism coded, where he's like, "Yep, no, I have my systems. I like to get in the tub in the morning, and if I get in the tub in the morning, I don't want to go out into the hallway. It'll be too cold. It'll be too cold in the hallway."
Oh, see, I don't think that's supposed to be abnormal. I think everybody has those routines, but if you try to explain, like, actually, when I, you know, whatever, make my eggs in the morning, I like to make sure that I pull out the butter 5 minutes beforehand so it's a little bit soft, you know, or what, like, anybody who explains their routines out and tries to be defensive about them is going to sound, whatever, neurotic or, you know, obsessive about them. But he's probably not really, you know, he's constantly talking about how he has this, like, upcoming promotion that he's kind of gunning for. Like, he said, well, before you know it, I'm going to be XYZ of the department. And so instead, I feel like his anxieties are coming from his place and not so much like his place in society instead of, you know, his social alienation, I guess.
Right. It's not internal,
like,
it's external. Yeah.
And
I mean, I definitely, like, I got over it, but, like, the very, very beginning, I was like, oh, like, and like, also, like, the social nervousness, but then, like, it's started to, as the movie goes on, it definitely bleeds more into, oh, like, he has guilt, even if he maybe hasn't done something yet, he is still guilty, at least in his heart.
Yeah. I think he has a guilty conscience in the sense that he knows that he is living a exploitative life or like an unproductive life, what, you know, how, depending on how harsh you want to be, of like a conformist or conformity. But yeah, I think he hasn't actually done an act that is transgressive, but he nonetheless has a guilty conscience, and I think, you know, the law is seizing upon that for a you know, new blood.
Yeah.
It's a cool movie. I feel like we could talk about it for a long time. Like, I have notes that we haven't gone over, but we're coming on an hour and a half here, so
yeah. But yeah, it is a cool movie. I liked it a lot. Maybe not liked it a lot. I did like it. Like, it was difficult in different ways than Incendies was difficult, right?
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. Jesus. Yeah. We gotta keep not bring up that movie anymore.
Well, all right, but I mean, they're both difficult movies, and that's just where I'm coming from with that.
Sure. Yeah. Difficult. Well, that makes it... also, before we get to that, I can't believe you haven't roasted me about Orson Welles and the way he looks in this movie. I was really anticipating that.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I didn't place him until... I didn't place him until he said at the end, like, oh, by the way, I was the advocate.
Yeah.
And, like, at that point, I didn't remember who the advocate was. So.
Oh, my God.
So you get away scot-free with this.
That's great. Okay, never mind then. We'll move along. What is Rick's pick?
Actually, give me a second because I'm looking up the Advocate Leprosy. Okay, they don't have him. They don't just straight up show
What?
a picture of him. That's crazy.
If you just search The Advocate?
Oh, yeah. Well, I searched
Hang on.
the Advocate Leprosy.
Search The Trial. He's literally the first. The first result when you Google The Advocate, The Trial. Search like 1962. Put that in there and you'll see him. Oh, it's crazy. This movie was remade with Anthony Hopkins.
Oh,
it
yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is Wells, yeah.
That sure is. Anyway, we can move along here. We don't have to linger on that one.
Hey, I'm not going to say anything about it.
I don't claim that man post like 1955. Probably.
Yeah.
1950.
Yeah.
He's run through. But Rick's pick.
Rick's
pick.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't actually pick one for this week.
Oh my God, Ricky. We've been doing this for like 6 episodes now. 7?
I know.
We have a lot of episodes.
But I couldn't think of a good one that wasn't anime. I'll say...
Jesus Christ.
Here. I'll say, would you like a classic movie or a movie that is classic to me that I have seen? Or do we want to pick, or would you want me to pick something off the list?
I don't have an opinion either way.
Okay. Now this is this is a movie which I think like maybe objectively is bad. Like watching it,
Cool.
I've watched it and I've been like, oh, like this movie's kind of bad. But I enjoy it. Every time.
This is the classic to the Ricky classic.
This is a Ricky classic. I enjoy it every time.
The suspense is killing me.
I have to be in like the mood to watch it.
Okay.
But I really like it. It's Cloud Atlas.
Oh no shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy. Okay, Christopher references this movie all the time. Apparently Tom Hanks is unhinged in this movie.
Yeah. I love Tom Hanks.
I didn't realize it was 3 hours.
It's a 3-hour movie.
Wow.
So it's it's based off of a book which is written as not a sextant, because that is a nautical
You mean like a six episode thing? Or like
there's 6
couplet,
storylines
whatever.
happening, and they're all
Sextet, perhaps.
Yeah, sextet. They're all intertwined. There's a phrase for like the musical version of that, which they reference a lot in the book, and the book, by the way, is even more unhinged than the movie.
Cool.
There's a part that it takes place during like different time periods.
Right.
And there's a part of it that's like in like 14th, 15th century like sailors, and it's written like that. Like it's weird.
I'm into it. Yeah, let's go. You say less. I mean,
okay, cool.
I'm excited. This it's the Wachowski sisters that directed this, so I'll be very interested to. Yeah. I mean, the cast is crazy. I know people like have varying opinions on this movie, like, but
there is.
Yeah, I'm totally interested.
There's one scene that's like a little much for me. We can talk about it next week.
I'm sure out of a 180-minute movie that there's at least one scene that's a little much.
Yeah. There's so much that the movie does really well, and then there's just a little bit that like stops me from ever like recommending it or like calling it my favorite movie.
Yeah.
But I do really, really like it. I really enjoy this one.
Oh,
so I think it'll be
Have you seen Speed Racer? The movie?
The original or the new one?
The live action one.
I haven't seen that, no.
Should we do a double feature of this and Cloud Atlas? That movie, Speed Racer, is also a Wachowski movie, and I fucking love that movie. I went into it thinking like, oh, this is gonna be like dumb, whatever, like weird maximalist trash. It's not. It was fucking incredible.
Okay.
I'm like, again, I don't have any relationship to the anime or anything, so anime. So if you wanted, we could do. Now that's
I'm
like
down for the
5
double
hours
feature.
of movie.
That's fine. I'm down for the double feature. Speed Racer has
Hell
been one that's
yeah,
been like
let's go.
in the back of my mind for a while. But I've seen like anime for it before, so I never really put a lot of credence to it. I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'll get around to watching it sometime.
Okay, yeah. I like threw it on.
reason.
I was like, all right, this is gonna be a dumb whatever blockbuster like failure.
Yeah.
It's fucking cool as hell. I was
Yeah,
like,
okay.
yeah, the end of that movie goes hard. So yeah, well, let's do it. Let's do
Okay.
it. 5 hours of film on this. Why not?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Cool.
All right, sweet. Well, this
it's a
was
dual.
We Want to Watch, and next week we have the dual feature of Speed Racer and Cloud Atlas. Join us next
We
time.
got a Rick's pick and a Lane's frame.
Yeah, 2-in-1. Little twofer.
That's great. Awesome. Cool.
Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. So you can use whichever one now. You have 2.
Sounds better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe I'll try and mix it into you and Billy Corgan. He was so hot.
Tell me I'm the only one for you. And I cannot...
The Digressions.